Welcome to Tammy Tuesday, the podcast of life, love, and purpose. We're so happy that you're here today. I'm excited to introduce you to our guest. She's a dear friend of mine and someone I'm very excited to talk to and share her story here on this platform. Kyleen. She is the founder of Connecting with a Creator. She's an intuitive healer and reads energy for people. Thank you so much for being here, Katie. I'm so thrilled that you're here.
It's so amazing to be here and just watch you in this element, which is so special for me.
Oh, well, you have been, thank you for that. You are such a huge part of my path, my journey. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm excited to share with people that are listening what you do. You have such a huge impact on so many in this world. And it's something that's very inspiring and world changing. And I'm just grateful to know you, honestly.
Same here.
So we met, of course, it's always like 1 degree to somebody. And I laugh because as I've done these interviews, as this podcast has been developing over time, everybody's connected to somebody. So Gelly, our mutual friend, is who introduced me to you. And I remember when I got to know Gelly, she said, "You need to know Katie." And I said, "Okay, I want to know Katie." So when I met you, I came in and I didn't know what to expect. And I know you do readings. Actually, I saw you on another podcast that you had recorded years prior, I think. And it talked about your healing journey, which was really interesting to me because I didn't know much about what you did at the time when I went to go visit you for my first reading.
Yes.
And I saw this podcast and I want to talk about it a little bit. It's not the main topic of our conversation, but this is a big part of your story. So I want you to share that with everybody a little bit, how you were able to heal yourself and discovering your connection with Creator and your healing powers and how powerful we really are as beings here that live in these bodies. So talk about that a little bit, because I think that's a great intro into all the things that you do.
Absolutely. So I have 2 phases of really, I want to say, life-changing things that happened to me. And one of it was my healing story. And then years later, it was connecting with the Creator. So do you want me to start with healing story first?
Yeah.
Okay,
because that's how that was the order it went for you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's start there.
So when I was younger, I found out that I have a virus called HPV. Mm-hmm. And from the virus that I had cancer. And back in the day, I was really young. I was around 16, 17. Mm-hmm. I was so embarrassed to tell my parents. So I kept it to myself. And I just thought, if I can just heal this naturally, then I just won't have to tell anyone.
Right.
You know, and so I was very naive at the time. And I thought that if I can just have some green juices and do a few Reiki sessions and, live this healthy life, that all of this would just heal and go away.
Really quick, before you even go further, you're saying things that most people are not naturally drawn to. I mean, you said even Reiki. You're 16 years old. So you had been exposed to natural healing modalities before that.
So I have loved spirituality for all my life.
Okay.
Like even when I was in math class, I remember having conversations with God open, underneath my math book. And as the teacher was talking, I was
Conversations with God.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
But at the time though, Tammy, I was only book smart.
Okay.
So I had read Deepak Chopra and Brian Weiss and past lives and this and that, but I really hadn't had a tangible spiritual experience yet.
Okay.
And so
what drew you to learning those books and absorbing that information though?
I was always so fascinated with knowing that there's more to life that we can see and feel. And I always knew there was this metaphysical reality.
Wow.
That we could tap into ever since I was really, really young.
So were you influenced by your family?
Not at all.
Okay, that's why I asked, because that's an important piece, because you were naturally drawn to this without any exposure to it.
My father's side of the family was really, really religious.
Okay.
Super cultured and traditional Persians. And my mother's side was very medical doctors are gods.
Okay.
So kind of not atheist, but kind of, really not focusing on the creator, God, the spiritual realm at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So no, I think this was just really intrinsic in me.
Wow. Well, I mean, as I've said this many times, we all come here that way anyway. And then it's masked by our upbringing. But the fact that you stayed on that track, regardless of your surroundings, that's really remarkable, Katie.
Yeah.
And unusual.
And I was just so hungry for it. I was so hungry when I was a young kid. And so I started doing the juicing. Okay. I start doing, going to Reiki sessions and anything I could get my hands on, like sound baths and visualizing the healing happening every day in my body. And month after month, Tammy, it got worse and worse. Not only did my outer symptoms get worse, where things didn't look the same down there anymore,
right?
Which was kind of traumatizing for me.
Yeah, if you mean physically, yeah.
Yes, very, very traumatizing. And then inwardly, I was starting to feel pain. And month after month passed by, and it got worse and worse and worse, to the point where 8 months had passed by, and I looked at the calendar, and the next day was going to be the first day of the 9th month. And all of a sudden, I realized this isn't working. This is getting worse. I'm so deathly afraid to tell my parents. And
they had no idea that you were sick at all?
No idea. No idea. My parents were divorced.
Okay.
My mom just kept asking me, why are you eating so much vegetables?
Okay.
Like she didn't know what was going on,
How lonely.
Yes. Lonely and scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. My best friend at the time did know though.
Okay.
And so after 9 months, I decided to, one day, after looking at the calendar and realizing this really isn't working, I had this surrender moment where all of a sudden I fell on my knees and I started crying. And I just said, Creator, God, please, I beg you, please help me. Like, I am so afraid. And so I remember laying down on my friend's bed, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do an energy healing on myself, really not knowing what on earth I was doing.
Right. Wow.
And I started to breathe. And with every breath, I just kept drawing in God with every breath. And I only had one prayer in my head, and it was a very desperate prayer. I beg you, please heal this. I beg you, please heal this. I beg you, please heal this. And for around 45 minutes, I did this breath connection thing that was, really powerful at the end, because at the end of the session, all of a sudden, Tammy, I had this feeling like the presence of the Creator was all around me. It felt very tangible in the room. And then I felt this feeling of tremendous peace, but ecstasy at the same time.
Wow.
And I'd never had a spiritual experience up to that point.
Right.
So it was my first full-on mystical experience. And it was this feeling of the Creator saying, I am here. It felt like an I am here energy.
Just presence.
Yes. And so then a few days passed by, and, with HPV comes genital warts.
Right.
And mine had gone freakishly bad, and I won't go into the details of it, but really, really bad. Yeah. It wasn't painful, but it was very deformed.
Right.
And so I went to take a shower, and I looked down, and all of a sudden I realized they're not there anymore. So one thing about what I was going through, because it was so traumatic, I wouldn't look down anymore. Even if I was going to the bathroom or taking a shower, I literally couldn't look down. And I was in the shower, I came to look down, and all of a sudden it was all gone. And I realized, oh my gosh, there's not one dot, there's not one blemish. Wow. I mean, it was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I could recognize my body again, because it had become irrecognizable. So I thought to myself, all the green juicing must have finally worked. And finally my immune system is kicking in, because with those genital warts, the only thing that heals it is if your immune system fights back. So I thought, all this, juicing, it's this is great.
Working.
Yeah. And so I thought to myself, it's time for me to tell my mom. It's time for me to tell my mom what's going on. I can't keep pushing this cancer thing underneath the rug anymore.
Right.
And I'm going to go and get retested by the same doctor and then go and take those test results to my mom and have my mom be kind of my co-signer or something like that.
Because you were still a minor.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I couldn't do surgery. I couldn't do anything. I had to have a parent there. So I went back to the doctor, the same lady. She was a very stern lady in the Middle East because that's where I was living at the time. And women just don't do those sort of things in the Middle East.
Right. Yeah.
So I went and got retested and I get a call, or I think it was a few days later or a week later. And the doctor says, you have to come back and get retested again. We mixed up your lab results. So I go back to get retested again, Tammy. And it was a little painful, uncomfortable. And again, I get called in to the doctor's office and the doctor says, Katie, what work have you done on yourself? There is no trace of cancer. And where did you get your surgery? And I'm like,
they thought you had surgery?
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm literally coming to figure that out right now. I haven't done any work. I'm coming to figure out what are my next steps. Like, do we need to do chemo? Where do we need to go? She's like, Katie, where did you get your work done? There is no trace of cancer.
Right.
And the second time she asked me, or I don't know if that was the third time, all of a sudden there was this knowing, holy moly, that session that day that I did on my friend's bed had caused a miraculous healing. And that was my first time knowing that with partnership with Source, with the Creator, with Spirit, with Divine, when you use your faith, miracles can actually happen.
Absolutely.
And that catapulted me onto my spiritual path even further because now I wanted to know, who do miracles happen to? Can anyone tap into this? How can I do this for others? And that's how my spiritual journey began.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I didn't hear it the first time I heard that story. I'm sure you told it differently too. It's different a little bit every time, but it didn't sound the same.
And it's been so long I've shared that story. I have to go back into my memory bank and pull it out.
But not just that, you're seeing and experiencing everything totally differently. So even the way you understand that story is different.
Yes, totally.
Which shows to me anyway.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. And it absolutely is true. We've talked about this on this show. People have heard us talk about these types of miraculous healings. They are absolutely possible and they do happen when you are in partnership. It's all about believing and understanding how that works, which is a great gift.
And tapping into it.
Which is the perfect segue. Because when I came to you, you even said that you're like, oh, that was a long time ago. A lot's happened since then, which clearly had. So talk about how things started to evolve for you in your relationship with Creator God, because it's been transformational for you in your life and what you're doing with the world.
Totally. And so as I went to search and learn and study everything, I started getting really attracted to what I call the spiritual candy store.
Okay.
And I wanted to learn this. I wanted to learn that. I wanted to learn hypnotherapy. I wanted to learn, this healing, that healing, conscious touch, blah, 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 all the things. And so I went and experienced everything and then kind of took a mishposh of all of that and turned it into my personal practice. And so my personal practice became kind of tapping into the spirit world on the other side, our guides, our angels, our loved ones, our masters, and then enmeshing that kind of channeling work with breath work. Because that was my first amazing experience that I had without realizing what on earth I was even doing at the time.
That was how you were tapping in. So that's what you understood.
Yeah. And so I took all of that and kind of turned it into my own kind of practice and modality. And at the time we used to call it gateway healing. And that's what became the work I did for about 13 years. And
that's a long time.
Yes. I mean, I took off with it. It turned into my full on practice. It turned into my identity.
Well, let me ask you this, because as you're evolving into this, it became a practice, a teachable practice that you were helping others learn and understand. So as you're doing this, because that doesn't just happen overnight. And you know me, I'm even on my own journey for this. We were just talking about before we started here today.
Yes.
So this is why I'm asking you this question, because people that are stepping into their bigger purpose, how did that start to transform into you knowing this is bigger than just me? This is for more than just me. This needs to be something that needs to be shared and taught and practiced. So how did that evolution happen? Because that's a big piece of how this transformed it for you.
For me, there was never another way.
Okay.
Because I was raised into it.
Okay.
I was in spiritual school by the time I was 17.
So is that when you discovered Delphi?
That is when I discovered Delphi. I was 17.
So how did you discover Delphi? Because Delphi is another topic, and I will have guests from Delphi on this podcast because they've been transformational for me as well. Talk about that for a second, because it's a very powerful place.
Yes. So what happened was, after I'd had the miraculous healing happen, I started searching, how can I learn more about spirituality? Like, I need to learn about my own makeup. I need to learn about my own being. You know, all I had to that point was book smart.
Right.
Right.
There's a huge difference.
A huge difference
between knowledge and wisdom,
actual practice
and understanding, experiential. Yes.
And so I researched online, and I found this school that was a channeling school that taught you how to channel. Okay. And that's what was interesting to me. Was I wanted to learn how to hear. I wanted to learn how to feel. I wanted to learn how to communicate. And so that's how I found Delphi. And that's how I went down that route. And I mean, at Delphi, I learned a lot of tools. Some of the tools that I learned with Gateway were outside of Delphi. Okay. What Delphi really taught me was how to listen and communicate.
Actually have conversation.
Yes, actually communicate with the other side.
Yes.
Or the metaphysical world, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, I was taking workshops left, right, and center, really trying and feeling what felt right to me. And I mean, Delphi will always be a piece of my soul. And I was there for 6 years straight. Wow. Going back and forth. But I was also doing so much other stuff as well.
Right.
Yeah. Like I went to learn breathwork training, which, Delphi doesn't teach,
right.
Just a lot of other stuff.
Sure.
Too. Yeah.
You were you were taking dips from everything because you were trying to figure it out for yourself.
Exactly. Spiritual candy store.
Yep. That makes sense. Okay.
And so then, with Gateway started to take off, really started to take off. So I started doing a lot of sessions on people, but mostly I started to teach. And my dream at the time was I wanted to have Gateway practitioners all over the world that would do this. And in that 13-year mark, I had gotten to teaching in 16 countries. Wow. And I mean, it had become my identity. It was who I was, is what I lived and I breathed. But it was also very exhausting. It was very exhausting. It was very draining. I constantly had to regulate and manage my energy. It was constantly giving, then recovery, giving, and then recovery. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. So then what started to happen, and this is really it was that really second mystical experience that changed my life again and really changed the course of my life, was one day I was in my bedroom, in my home, and I was folding my clothes and I was listening to hip hop music. I was dancing. It was my day off.
You were living.
It was just, just having a good time as I was folding my laundry. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this energy came through, and it came out of nowhere. I mean, I wasn't calling it in. I was clearly in my chill, vibe and zone.
Yeah.
And it was this gush of unconditional love from the creator. And it came through so strong. I had to put my headphones aside and just feel it for a moment. And that feeling stayed with me for around 20 minutes. And I was like, oh my goodness, what was that? And with Gateway, energy doesn't come through until you call it in.
Okay.
So this was really odd for me. This came without me asking for it. It was not in my framework that day.
Right. You weren't trying to bring it in.
At all. And I hadn't even created the space for it. I mean, I was in hip hop music, dancing, like it was not in the framework at all.
Right.
And so then I put my headphones back on and continued folding, but I'm in a little bit of a different state now. And all of a sudden, another wave of the presence came in, but this time it was so strong. I mean, I took my headphones out and I started crying, because the presence of love was so strong, and it was the creator. It didn't feel like my guides. It didn't feel like the masters, which I usually work with. It didn't feel like the loved ones on the other side. It felt like the creator.
Right.
And so this experience lasted for a whole day, and I was on this high for a few days' time. And then I started seeing very weird dreams after that, Tammy. I started seeing dreams that I usually don't. So one of the dreams that I saw was, I saw my heart one night in my sleep state, and I saw this beautiful white and blue light coming out of it. It's just shiny white and blue light. And I remember looking, going, oh, this is so miraculous, but not knowing what it was. And it felt like something new. And the feeling of it felt new in the dream. And I woke up and I was like, oh, cool new download.
Yeah.
Really not knowing what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of weird dreams like that I usually, didn't see. And then the weirder things started to happen. People started coming in for sessions, and I remember this so clearly. This woman comes in for a session, and she comes in for a gateway session, and I start doing the gateway. And in gateway, there's breath work, invocation, and calling in the spiritual beings like a hierarchy. So she starts her breath work. I'm invoking in those spiritual beings in a hierarchy like state.
In an order, yeah.
In order. And there was an order. We called in the same order every time.
Okay.
Start with the angels, archangels, loved ones. It was this order, like a pyramid.
Yeah.
And I'm invoking in, the angels, the archangels, and all of a sudden this presence comes through me. And instead of it coming through the way I usually experience it, which is in channel, you usually feel it from the crown and you feel it coming down this way. And that's how I felt it with Gateway. Like you're opening up your crown and it's flooding in through. This felt like it was coming through from within me. And it was coming through this way.
Okay.
So it wasn't coming through this way, but this way.
Okay.
And it felt like the creator. And I was like, oh goodness, this woman must really need the creator today. Wow. Okay, cool. Next day, same thing happened. Another woman comes in and this presence, this energy starts coming in through this way again. And I'm like, oh my goodness, another woman that's needing the creator right now.
Did you change how you were operating when you started to experience that?
Not at all.
Okay.
I'm still doing my gateway.
Okay.
The person's still doing their breath. Nothing.
You just can feel it.
I can just feel something coming through, and it felt very different.
Got it.
Third day, another woman comes in and the same thing happens. And now, Tammy, I'm getting irritated because I felt like I was being pulled in another direction. I was trying to channel and go higher and lighter, and this presence was coming through and taking me inwards. So this tug of war began to happen.
Wow.
And this went on for weeks, Tammy. For weeks, to the point where my sessions were becoming very discombobulating. And I know if they were discombobulating to me as the facilitator, I don't even know what I was doing to the people on the table.
Right.
And it started becoming this tug of war where I wanted to keep invoking in the angels, archangels, loved ones, spirit guides. And this presence kept taking me inwards in another direction. Finally, it was getting so bad. I was starting to have arguments in my head as the session was happening. Like, please leave me alone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like,
Creator's like, excuse me?
Yeah. Creator's like, no. And I started feeling nervous because whatever this was coming through was really taking over. It was very insistent. And it was getting to the point where I couldn't just brush it off and keep doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
So one day, and I'll never forget this beautiful Armenian lady comes in for a session. And, I tell her to start breathing, and I start invoking in the angels, the archangels, the loved ones, my gateway hierarchy.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, like right in front of me, this huge doorway opens up, Tammy, really big, and in a way where, you couldn't deny it.
Yeah.
And if the ladies' table was here, it was like right here, like above.
Wow.
And it was that same presence, but this time it was coming in front of my face instead of coming through me. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, as this doorway opened and it came through huge, I heard this really loud voice, like bellow through me. Like, when you hit a gong and it goes bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
bum, 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 bum. So as the doorway opened and this presence comes through, all of a sudden I hear the words, "Am I not enough for you?" Bum, 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 just bellowed through me, shook me to the core like a vibration that ran through me.
Well, and you're with somebody.
I'm with someone. The woman has no idea what's going on.
Right.
This is between me and the source, the creator coming through.
Yeah.
And Tammy, it came through in a way where I couldn't ignore it this time. And the moment it came through and I felt its energy and it said those words, I had this knowing that all I need in order to create healings, to be in a balanced place, in order for miracles to happen, was to tap into the creator. It was just this knowing that I don't need anything other than that.
Like, this is it. Take it.
This is it. And it scared the hell out of me.
Why did it scare you?
Because at the time I was so afraid that the creator was asking me to be some kind of a Bible thumping conversionalist.
Okay. That's why I'm asking this question, because it's very relevant.
And I was so afraid that everything had built up with Gateway until this point, which had worked so hard to get it to where it was,
Right.
was now no longer relevant.
That's scary.
It is. And that all my security was being pulled out from underneath me. Because this is where my security came from.
Well, like you said, it was your whole identity. It was all you knew.
It was. So it was a total identity crisis. So I was so lucky, Tammy. I had this pilgrimage set the week later. And I was going to just put my whole life on pause and really think this through. All I knew is I couldn't deny this energy anymore.
Right.
And another weird thing, Tammy, that was happening exactly at the same time is I couldn't do my readings anymore.
What was happening? Was it just a closed door?
So every time, what I was taught is the way you read is you enter in through someone's solar plexus into their heart and begin scanning their energy and reading them.
Right.
So every time I went to do it the way I was trained and loved to do it, where I came to enter in to begin reading someone, the energy would come and pull me back. And so again, it was this tug of war.
You were trying to go in and it was pulling resisting
back,
you.
Pulling back this way, pulling back this way.
So what were you doing in those moments to handle this?
Tammy, it was so embarrassing. I had to turn people away. People would come for a reading and I was so used to getting answers like that for them.
Right.
And I would have to say, I am so sorry, ma'am. I am not getting anything today, which never happened to me in the entire history of my career. Wow. I was known to, you have a question, I'll tune in and answer it for you. Yeah. And so I had people come 3 or 4 times trying to tune in and I couldn't get it. Before even letting go of the healings, I let go of the readings because it was starting to get really embarrassing.
Yeah,
really,
very
really
uncomfortable,
embarrassing.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So embarrassing. So I went onto this spiritual pilgrimage, and I don't know what happened, but when I came back, I just had this knowing that it's just time to work with the Creator. That I was going to let go of working with the angels, the archangels, the guides, the masters, the ETs, all of my buddies, the helpers that I love so much.
Yes.
I was going to put them aside and just work with this energy and see what it can do. So I was literally walking blindly in experimental stage. So people would come in for a session, and I was so nervous because they were so used to working with their entire posse.
That was at that point your easy button too. And you knew how to do that. And all of a sudden you're like, I can't do this way anymore.
Exactly. And so people would come in, I'd still have them do the breath work, and I would still invoke the energy in, but I would invoke only the Creator. And so something interesting that happened is as I was invoking and doing this work, I was still trying to bring it in through my channel, which is the way I was taught. So draw it in through this way. Like it comes through me and goes out the other person.
Right.
And this energy was still trying to come through this way. So the sessions were still discombobulated. They felt a little better. Something about it felt a little bit more in harmony. Like it didn't feel as bad after the session was done, but it still felt really off. And so one day I hear a voice in my ear, and I hear the words, stop invoking, like stop channeling.
Like, would you quit it?
And I was so angry. I mean, Tammy, I was angry.
What did you do?
Because the Creator had already taken my helpers away from me that I loved so much working with, and I was so attached to.
Yeah.
Now it was having me take my invoking and my channeling away. And so after a lot of fighting, I let go. And so now people are coming in, doing sessions, and they're doing breath work. And I'm just letting this energy come through. And I'm like, why are people even paying for this now? Like,
you were totally down with it.
This is ridiculous. I don't even know what I'm doing, you know?
Oh, wow.
And this crisis is going on within me. Like no one knows what's going on other than my closest dear friends.
Sure.
And I was just trying to keep some livelihood going, so I could just pay my rent.
Right. This was your livelihood.
Absolutely. Because now I'm not teaching gateway classes, which was so much of the income that I made.
Right.
I'm not doing readings, which was so much of the income that I made. All I'm left is with these healings, you know, and I'm at the bare minimum, Tammy.
Right.
Bare minimum, just getting through. And so I stopped the invoking. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling like I could come closer to the person, because with Gateway, you stand really far.
Oh, okay.
And so I had this feeling like it almost didn't matter where I stood, like I could stand closer. So I started standing closer, and the energy started coming through. The beautiful thing was I stopped feeling discombobulated.
Oh, clarity came.
I wasn't pulling in two directions anymore. I was just letting it come through this way. And it was so easy and effortless. I mean, it was flowing in through. I didn't have to say anything. The presence just started coming through, and I started watching it, you know, seeing what it was doing on other people. Then a few months later, I hear the words, stop telling them to breathe. When I am here, the breath is unnecessary.
Because you were still having them do breath work.
And I'm like, what?
You took your last thing.
I took my last bells and whistle away, because I love the feeling, that buzzy feeling people got after breath work. You know, I'm like, okay, at least they know something is going on. Yeah. And it was taking my final crutch away from me, Tammy.
Wow.
So everything I had ever learned from every school was being pulled away layer by layer. And it was terrifying. Terrifying.
I can imagine.
So I remember having arguments in my mind with the Creator, like, do you just want me to sit here and just let it come through? Like, people aren't going to pay me to do this.
You were so fixated on the money.
I was
performing.
I was fixated on a performance, and
that's huge.
And I didn't know what I was doing. The problem is I was walking blindly, you know, So I started doing it. I started doing my sessions in silence. And it started coming through, and it was okay.
People were still experiencing.
People were still having energetic experiences, and I was stopping the sessions around an hour because that's how long Gateway went.
Okay.
And one day I was doing a session with my friend, and I lost track of time, and we went past the hour mark. And something miraculous happened, Tammy, at the hour mark. All of a sudden, it's like the presence of the Creator came so forward that I could tangibly feel it throughout my entire body.
I have goosebumps right now.
And it was like, it wasn't like it's up there or it's there or I'm trying to draw it in. It was fully embodied.
Wow.
I mean, the Creator was right there in the forefront, and the energy felt buoyant and light. And that's when it's like, it felt like we were tapping into the miraculous. Huh. And so I realized with this work, I had to wait for the hour mark to pass, and then I need to make my sessions 2 hours long.
Wow.
So again, I'm learning in the blind.
Sure.
And so
you're learning through experience.
Literally.
That's the only way really it works.
Right. And
I mean,
it was the only way available to me, because I would try to read books about it. There was nothing on it.
Can't read about it.
I looked everywhere I could. I tried to explain it to my teachers. My teachers didn't know what was going on. They couldn't tune into me the same way they used to. I mean, no, all I had was me.
Your whole energy was changing.
Exactly. And the makeup of my energy was changing. Mm-hmm. So after that, I realized that at that hour mark, as the Creator really fully comes through, I could also begin hearing its voice, which I had never experienced before up to that point.
Okay.
So that's when I sat down and began what I call assembling into the Creator within me, and start writing down what on earth is going on. And the Creator started explaining it to me, that I am within you. And in that first hour, I take you inwards to me, to the kingdom within you where I live. And from there, through direct exposure to my being, I can bring in through answers and healing for you and for anyone. And I also learned that the moment you enter into the Creator within you, anyone in the room with you, it begins to enter at the same time. The energy is contagious.
Yeah, you're connected. You're then connected.
Exactly. And so that's where connecting with the Creator began. And it took me a whole year, Tammy. That was a whole year process of like barely making it. I was so afraid some days I was going to be homeless, and figuring out what on earth was going on.
Well, and you continued to trust that you knew this was still your path in spite of the life struggle that you were facing.
Yes, it was one step at a time forward. And then another thing started to happen with the readings. I realized I can do the readings the same way. So for the first hour, I would close my eyes. We would both go inwards at the same time. And in that second hour, the Creator would come through, and Tammy, the most beautiful things came through that I had never had access to up to that point. The Creator started talking about people's soul signatures, how the Creator created each soul, what the purpose of each soul was, like why the soul is here on earth. I started to see the beauty in the person's soul on another level. And before the way I did the readings, like before the connecting with the Creator work, I would enter into the person and I would see the person's blockages and their past lives and what they need to heal from. And with this work, when I came in to do that, I wasn't able to do it anymore. And the Creator said, focus not on their fears, but only on the truth of who they are.
Right, their core.
Because that is how I see them.
See them through me.
Yes, exactly. And so my entire way of existing and doing spiritual work changed. But now where I'm at, I would never go back.
Right. Well, you know too much.
Yes, I would never go back. It's so much easier. It's so much more effortless.
Well, it's more direct.
It is. It is more
and
direct.
And it's more pure and what it is.
Absolutely. And after doing a lot of sessions, the creator started coming through and telling other people that, hey, I want to come through you too. And that's when I realized connecting with the creator isn't a Katie modality. It's an everyone modality.
Right.
Like the creator wants to come through everyone. It is waiting to come through everyone.
Yeah.
And that's when I started teaching the connecting with the creator classes, because I realized this isn't just something I'm meant to hold on to. It's a universal thing that is everybody's birthright. We are meant to walk with the creator at all times in our lives.
Oh, I love that. And that is what's so beautiful about what you're doing, because so many people don't understand that. And the more we can experience and understand that for ourselves, it changes everything.
Totally.
I mean, it changes everything. And like you were saying, when you were young, you were reading Conversations with God. This is real. You can have conversations with God, and they don't look the way you think they do. They're legit. Like you're talking to your best friend.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're getting
voice.
exchanges that are something that would be like Katie and I are sitting here talking right now.
Yeah.
I mean, real conversation and guidance and help and pure love. I mean, only from love, which is tremendously powerful.
It is, because that's where true change happens anyways. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen by going into our lower dungeons. Mm-hmm. It happens by stepping into the deepest light within us.
Exposing your light.
Exactly. Exposing your light to all other parts of you that are in need of it.
Well, like he said to you, Creator said, don't focus on their blocks. Don't focus on their ailments or their things that are holding them back. Focus on what they really are.
Yes, exactly.
They're light. Because that's all we are. All of us are just light deep down.
And Tammy, by doing these readings, I have seen that each soul has a very powerful plan. Like the creator has a mission for each soul here on earth.
Totally individual too.
Absolutely individual and absolutely unique to them. Even if two souls are meant to be, let's just say, a life coach, like it's in both of their destinies to be a life coach, one soul may have the gift of opening up other people's voices, and another soul may have the gift of bringing self-compassion into their aura. Like different souls have these unique vibrations that they can open up within another person. And so
it's like their own fingerprint.
Exactly. And doing these readings, I've realized the creator isn't short-sighted. It's not short-term sighted. When the creator comes through, it gives you this entire plan of what is to be, or what. But what I mean by what it is to be is the way it wants to co-create with you.
Right.
Whether you want to co-create that way or not is your choice.
Exactly. We all continue to have free will.
Exactly. And so, I've had a woman come in, ask, hey, what is my life purpose? And the creator said, my daughter, you are here to be a chef. You have the amazing ability to work with food. And if you continue on this path, by the time you are done, you're going to have 3 restaurants that you're going to give as legacy to your children to come.
That's amazing.
And she was just sitting there like, oh, I always loved cooking, but I didn't know this was supposed to be a thing.
Right.
So there are these little gifts that we have inside of ourselves that we haven't fully tapped into, or we don't know that are actually our real purpose.
Right. And like you said, how Creator wants to work with you in this life to do those things, to create.
Absolutely.
Because we're all a piece of the Creator. We're creators ourselves.
Yes.
He wants to co-create.
And, I've had it so many times where the creator will put out the suggestion, but whether the person receives it or not is totally up to them. Their rate of where they are in their acceptance of their soul, or I've had people come in for a session and then 3 years later, the same thing was reiterated. And finally they are ready to step on to the path.
Exactly. Well, that's one thing I always say is people are ready when they're ready, and they may hear it way before they even really hear it. In fact, it's interesting. I was talking about God Talks, that workshop that I went to. Amazing. And one of the messages that stood out to me was, we're ready, but even when we hear something regardless of who it's coming from, even if it's coming from creator or it's coming from somebody that's speaking on a stage or it's coming from a telephone call, your best friend, wherever you're hearing the words that are coming to you, you may hear it entirely different than what's being intended for you because you're either ready or you're not.
Absolutely.
So even if somebody's in the same room and they may hear it differently than you're hearing it, because we all hear it how we're meant to hear it, regardless of who's saying it. So powerful. Absolutely. And especially from creator. I mean, he's going to constantly present us with how he wants to co-create. We're going to hear it different ways and different times and where we are on our path.
And sometimes, Tammy, people are so afraid of taking the steps it takes to get there. This woman was so courageous, the woman that was a chef. She actually went to culinary school and became a chef. But maybe if it were someone else, they would say, I don't want to go back to school. You know, I'm 45 years old. Why would I want to go back to school right now?
Exactly. And that's a choice.
And that's the choice. Exactly.
So that's not their trajectory.
Yes. Yeah. And the beautiful thing is I've also seen souls are very versatile where they have multiple gifts. Mm-hmm. So a soul may have, the gift of protecting people in nature, but that same soul may also have the gift of opening up minds to be more inquisitive. And that same soul may also have the gift of expressing its thoughts very clearly on paper. So souls sometimes have multiple purposes, but there is always a higher arching purpose that unfortunately most souls, when they come here on earth, if they are not on the spiritual path and not in connection, end up missing.
Yeah, I know. But they do find some version of a path.
Yes.
Like you said, through the various gifts that they have.
Yes.
So it's not like they completely miss it. They don't miss the on-ramp. They just miss maybe the one that was taking them to something bigger.
Yes. Or where their energy comes through the purest.
Right.
Where their energy comes through the purest. Like, I'll give you another example. We have this sweet lady in our community. And in fact, you probably know her. And she's so sweet. And she has a very quirky personality. Mm-hmm. And she's usually a little uncomfortable around adults. Mm-hmm. Or it takes her just time to warm up,
Confidence?
That's what I thought.
Okay.
So she came in for a session and she loves spiritual work. She loves talking to people. She loves giving them advice. She will stop a person at a grocery store if she can help them. Like, she's big-hearted and incredible woman. And when the creator came through in her session, the creator said, my daughter, you are meant to work with children, not adults.
Oh, ding, ding, ding.
Yes. And that you can meet kids on their level and be fun and quirky with them and get their attention very quickly.
Wow. Did that resonate?
Totally. She's in school right now, psychology school for kids. She's going to be a kids counselor.
That's amazing.
She is incredible. I'm so proud of her. But I'm saying this because we may look at someone from the outside and go, why are you not like that? You don't fit in our box or my box. But really, they are created perfectly the way they are meant to for their unique purpose.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works. That's why I talk about this a lot. You cannot have preconceived ideas about people or judgments of what they're doing and where they're at or how they behave. Their behavior is very indicative, naturally, of who they really are at the core. It's a real thing.
If someone's more mental, it's because they're supposed to be. If someone's more emotional, it's because they're supposed to be. If someone's more sensitive, it's because they're supposed to be.
Right. So if we can embrace and see those things as gifts versus handicaps or challenges, they're actually gifts for something that they're really meant to do.
Totally.
I mean, it's such a beautiful way to look at people.
It is. And my whole view of the world and life changed after working with the creator. Because before, when a person came in and they were more mental, I would say, "Ooh, you are so heady."
In your head.
Yeah, we need to fix that heady energy. We need to, drop you down into your feelings more, because that's the lens that I would look at people through. Right. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, "Ooh, you're so mental. I wonder what you're here to do."
Right. Right. I can't wait to see what this is about.
Yes. And then there goes that guy is supposed to invent the next, solar panel that's going to make our lives easier.
Right.
And has to be heady in this lifetime.
Right. Their intellect is key.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. Speaking about people and understanding people, empathy is such a huge, huge thing in this world. And I have always felt very empathetic and as an empath, because when I walk into someone's energy, I immediately can feel whatever it is they're feeling. I mean, it's like, ugh. I can't not feel it. And I've always felt that way, and I've never understood it. As I've evolved in my spirituality, I have a much deeper understanding of empathy and what that means to be an empath. Maybe explain that for people a little bit, because you'll explain it better than me. Because people say, I remember when somebody first said, they're like, are you an empath? And I'm like, what is that?
But first of all, you are such an empath.
I know.
You're breathtakingly empathic. It's one of the things I love about you so deeply. Like, I love being around your empathic energy.
Oh, thank you.
So what is an empath? So an empath is someone who is very energetically sensitive, where it can literally feel energy within itself and around itself very clearly and easily. Mm-hmm. And empaths are extraordinary because when you're an empath, you have an amazing lie detector. You can feel through when someone else is being dishonest. When you're an empath, you also have tremendous self-awareness because you can feel through your inner being more deeply. So when something's off, you can shift it much more quickly.
Or just be in pain with it.
Yes.
Either.
Well, that's if you don't have tools as an empath, which we'll get to.
Yes.
The third thing is when you're an empath, you literally have the ability to be so compassionate because you can feel what the other person is going through and then respond from a very mature place to the other person. So your ability to understand someone else's energy is on another level. Mm-hmm. And the final thing I love about empaths is when you're empathic and spiritually sensitive, your ability to commune with the creator and with spirit is so much easier because spirit speaks through your feelings. Mm-hmm. So empaths, to me, are these extraordinary beings. Extraordinary.
Wow. It's interesting too, because as I've learned this about myself and really understood what it is from a intellectual standpoint, like you said, you can read it in a book, but when you understand what it means and you can feel it, it takes it to a whole nother level. It's people out there that are listening. If you feel, why is it that I take things on and I cannot not feel, like I'll see somebody crying and it instantly makes me want to cry because I can feel their emotion. I mean, I see somebody crying, whether it's on a commercial or wherever it is, and I cannot not feel that. So I'm a crier at weddings and funerals, whether it's somebody I know or don't know, I just can feel that energy. And it can be tough because it's a lot of energy to take on because we already have our own experience with how we're feeling with things internally. And then you turn on everyone else's, it's a lot. So how do you suggest empaths? And I'm asking this for myself.
This is amazing.
How do you turn it down a little bit so you're not quite so sensitive to all the energy? I mean, I literally will be like, if I'm in at an event or something, I can feel people's energy. I am exhausted by the end because I feel like I've taken so much on and I want to feel the beauty of it, but I don't want it to handicap me or exhaust me.
Tammy, this question is so huge and it's so big because so many people have asked this question. So first thing to know about an empath is like a dog. You know how a dog can smell a pizza from another room? Mm-hmm. Like that's how heightened and sensitive it is. Mm-hmm. That's an empath. But just because it can smell a pizza from another room doesn't mean the pizza is in the dog's mouth.
Right.
And the same goes with being an empath. Just because we can feel someone else's energy doesn't mean we're taking it on. There's this huge spiritual dogma right now in the world that empaths are sponges. That is not true.
Right.
What's actually making you take the energy on and absorb the energy in has nothing to do with your psychic and energetic sensitivity abilities.
Okay.
So what makes you take on the energy is actually these leaks that we have in our own aura that I call unprotected vulnerabilities.
Okay.
And when we have these unprotected vulnerabilities, by the end of a conversation or by the end of a healing session or by the end of an event, we are exhausted. Totally exhausted.
Okay.
But I just want to separate that from actually feeling it. Feeling is, and picking up on everything in the room is really good for you because it's giving you information. Mm-hmm. It's telling you, I don't want to talk to Jack today. Not really feeling him right now. Ooh, this woman is so sincere. Let's have a conversation with her.
Okay.
So the feeling is really amazing because it's giving you information on where you need to go next.
Okay.
So we never want to turn it down.
Sure.
Yeah. We want it to be on full blast. Mm-hmm. So when I go to an event, I tune in the same way I would if I'm going and doing a private session. Okay. I am on.
Got it.
Hyper on. Eyes huge. Energy huge.
Okay.
Yeah. We want all the information.
Yeah.
Because that information is what's protecting you.
Isn't that ironic?
Yes, I know. That information is what's making you
It's guiding you in the right direction.
Exactly.
It's your navigator.
It is your navigator. Yes. So we want that part. But the part we want to work on is why we are actually absorbing the energy.
Yes.
Which is...
Help me with that, Katie.
I totally understand. I really, really do. So why we are absorbing the energy is because when we were young, from a young age, we weren't told to stand in our own aura and not pull out of it.
Okay.
We weren't told to be in the stance of sovereignty where we're connected to the creator at all times.
Okay.
None of us were taught this.
Sure.
I wasn't taught this. Were you?
No.
Yeah. And so through these different unprotected vulnerabilities that we can have in our aura, it makes us pull out of our own energy and into the other person. And that's what makes us absorb the energy.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
People pleasing was a huge one for me.
For many people.
Yes, huge one. So when you're people pleasing, what you're doing is you're taking your empathic abilities, you're leaving your aura, entering into the other one, feeling to see what pleases them, and then you're responding from that place. The moment you left your own stance with the creator, you left your own protection to enter into the other person to read them, you just became vulnerable. To absorbing energy.
It's almost like you just opened a hole, a leak.
Exactly. And
interesting.
We have hundreds of unprotected vulnerabilities in our aura.
Right.
And it's different depending on the personality type and the way the person was raised.
Huh. So this is an unlearning.
So what I always suggest, and this is why I've created a course on this, is it's not about healing all your unprotected vulnerabilities. It's about learning to stand with the creator at all times. And learning how to be in that stance and operating from that stance.
Right.
Because the truth is we have so many layers of stuff and we don't want to waste our whole life healing the next layer and the next layer and the next layer.
Right. Move on with it.
Exactly. We want to just know where we want to operate from, because another unprotected vulnerability can be, the savior complex, wanting to fix someone.
Yes. Huge for people.
And that can happen in our own family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We see our kid or our husband or our wife or whatever, and it's like, I want to make an adjustment there. The moment you do that, you pull out of your own energy into the other person's, making you absorb their energy.
Right.
Yeah. So they come across in these very sneaky ways sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it just stifles your own growth.
It does. It does. And it pulls you out of where your focus on your center needs to be.
Right.
So one thing that I do is teach in this course is teaching you how to stay very connected to the creator within you and doing everything from there. Your phone conversations from there, your healings from there, your grocery shopping from there.
Right.
Everything from that place.
That's really powerful. And so when you say that to me anyway, it feels like, well, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it seems obvious when you
break it down.
And when you've experienced, I mean, I've experienced deep levels of this through classes I've taken with you for connecting with the Creator. So I have a deeper understanding of my own connection with Creator, God, Source. So for me, I see it now that you say that, it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I do that?
Yes.
But it's not so easy when you're living day to day. It's a constant. That's why everything we do is called practice.
Yes. And the day-to-day practice is so important. So every day, I don't focus on all the layers and blockages I need to heal. I focus on doggy paddling my way into the Creator's heart.
Yeah.
And coming from that place. And that's why I have my morning practice and my night practice. Mm-hmm. I begin with the Creator, I end with the Creator. But even if you have a 30-minute morning practice with the Creator, it will do wonders.
Yeah, I know.
Your whole day will change.
I agree with you because that's something that I now do. I have consistent practice because I understand how powerful and life-changing and beautiful it is.
Yes.
It puts you in a state of peace and grace and reception. I mean, you can receive and you're no longer having to push. It just comes. It's just such a more peaceful way to experience the world around you.
It absolutely is. And it's so powerful that when empaths stop using outer tools to protect their energy, they finally find their power. Because
say that again.
When empaths stop using outer tools to try and protect their energy, they finally find their power.
Right.
Because this is where it gets really sad, and this is where people hate me, but I say it anyways. You can pick up books at the store where they'll tell you, Guide to Protecting Your Energy as an Empath. Do an Epsom salt bath. Make sure you sage yourself every day. Mm-hmm. Do not go to the mall. Right? And all of these things are outer tools that really cripple a soul.
Right.
Or make sure you put tourmaline in your bra and walk around with it so you don't absorb other people's energy. These are these outer knickknacks where we're giving our power away.
Right.
Instead of going inwards, connecting to the source within us, the Creator within us, the light within us, and letting our protection come from there.
Oh, that's incredible. That is so huge. The more you look out, the more you depend on that. When all you need is within, period.
Exactly. And so I'm very big about kind of breaking down spiritual dogmas that sound really, put this crystal in, but really, if you look at it more deeply, are stopping us from learning how to tap in and have direct access, to the Creator within inside of us.
It's interesting. I've said this a lot, as I've evolved, and it reminds me of two things from movies. One, the ruby slippers. You always have it. Your home is always inside. You don't have to go anywhere to get it. You have the ruby slippers. And two is Dumbo's feather, his magic feather. You have these things. They're within you. You don't need something outside of you to have everything you need. You already have it. It already exists. You and God are creating it together. You're living it together. But you have to find that within. You're not going to find it outside of there. You're just not.
Yeah, no, you're not.
It's going to keep you seeking for more outside of yourself.
It is. And when people have lost connection directly to the Creator, they begin to lean on the elements to heal them. So what are the elements? Breath, fire, the moon.
Right.
Air, whatever, this, that, but when you have a direct connection with the Creator, the elements aren't needed anymore in order for spiritual healing to take place.
Right. Well, that's the thing. And I want to talk about both the class you're talking about, empathy and taking these energies on and standing in your own power, and also connecting with Creator through soul prayer. Soul prayer that I learned from you through your practice has been such a beautiful gift for me, because it's people might look at you and say, okay, that's meditation. And it doesn't really matter what you call it. What it is you're going inside, you're getting silent and still, so you can open your channel to receive alignment.
Yes.
I mean, that's it.
Yeah. And it really isn't meditation, because meditation is just sitting there and allowing your mind to become still.
Right.
And it looks meditative, and connecting with the Creator is meditative, but it's not meditation at all.
It's a different practice.
It's a way of tapping into the Creator within you and going to the deepest power point within you where the Creator lives, and letting your healing come through from there.
Right.
So it's super magical. Every time I have a problem now, Tammy, I know where I need to go. I go inside, let the Creator come through and reveal whatever it needs to reveal to me. You know, and so soul prayers, the word soul prayers just means the energy coming through the Creator to take us inwards.
Well, the thing that I love too, that I learned in your course, and if people are interested, I highly recommend it. It takes you to a whole different level of understanding of your connection with Creator. But the biggest takeaway for me, well, not the biggest, but one of them was that when you practice soul prayers in your connection with Creator and God, it connects you to everything.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just about you anymore. You realize, oh my gosh, I am part of a collective here. Like, we are one. It is so much bigger than even you have any idea. So when you start having that deep connection with yourself and Creator, your channel opens up so much that you cannot see things the same. You just don't.
Yes. And the closer you get to the Creator within you, and the closer your relationship and partnership gets, the more protective you are of every human soul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It naturally makes you want to help the world instead of judge it.
Yes. And hurting someone else actually becomes harder, and the repercussions become harder, because the more connected you are to the Creator within you, the more when you come to hurt another person, you realize you are hurting the Creator within them.
Right. And in turn yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we're all together on this. It's just, it opens that understanding to a whole nother level. For me, it really did. That was a huge turning point when I really discovered just how connected we are through an experience, not just reading about it. Like feeling it deep within inside of me in my connection. And
you were amazing. I mean, having you there was so amazing.
It was such a powerful experience. I mean, it really life-changing. And ever since then, every experience that I've had it's just been growing and growing and growing. I mean, once you know something, you can't unknow it.
Yes.
And you see things with different eyes. And those eyes are that's how you see things now. Changes your whole understanding. Is there anything else you want to share about any of that? Because I just find this such a powerful message for people that are experiencing, the normal stresses of life. This is such a way to help you with your daily pain. When you have sovereignty, like you said, with the Creator, it just changes your perspective. When those pain points happen, and they do, and they will continue to boil up and present themselves. But man, oh man, when you have this connection, it sure does change how quickly they can pass.
Absolutely. I would say connecting with the Creator is everybody's birthright. Like, we are not meant to walk here alone on earth. We are meant to have the Creator's protection in our energy every single day. We are meant to have the Creator's protection in an automated way, not a manual way. And
that's huge.
Yeah. And so I'll tell you what the difference is. Manual way is saying, Creator, come through now. Please help me with this. I invite you and I invoke you in. That is manually trying to draw in an energy. But when you allow the Creator to reconnect back into your own soul again, the protection becomes automated. And so what that happens is, if you come to one day, open your cabinet door and eat a piece of chocolate when your body really doesn't want it, the Creator will come through and pull back the craving automatically. So you'll always in this constant protection of the Creator's being in your aura that's very palpable and evident. Or if you come to pick up the phone and say something negative about a friend that's not right, you'll feel the Creator come through and hold your mouth, like silence your tongue, like don't go there. So we're at a place where we have lost our automated connection and protection with the Creator. And one of the messages that the Creator brings in through, and I feel like one of my missions is to reconnect people back to their automated protection with the Creator.
Oh, that's beautiful. You said one of your missions. Let's talk about that for a second before we wrap up. What do you, because my mission here on this podcast is to help people discover what their co-creator God mission is, right? And when you're co-creating with God, all things are possible. So for you today, because I know it shifts and change as we evolve, how do you see that for you now?
My mission, I want to say for the past 4 years or so, it's been helping people to understand the will of God. That the will of God is always the highest and the best, that the Creator gives you nothing less than its 100% and gives you nothing best than the highest outcome. And then is to teach people that the Creator is within you. It's not a man in the sky with a pitchfork.
Right.
It is a real living energy that you and everyone else can access. And then the third thing is from that access point, that's where our protection comes through. That's where the healing comes through, the guidance comes through, the answers. Everything that we need comes from the source that created us.
Yeah.
And that our energy field was created to be able to tap into that. This is our inheritance.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's our birthright.
Yeah. We're not meant to walk nakedly in the world without it. And by doing so, it creates so much suffering that we don't need to have. Now, the problem is because our world has become so isolated from the Creator's being, we have you can't ever disconnect from the Creator, but you can temporarily isolate and push the Creator back. So one of my missions is to teach people how to reconnect to it and step out of that isolation energy that they were taught from when they were young.
Yeah, exactly. That's a learned behavior. It's an earthly, human learned behavior.
Yes.
It's not where we came from. Before we got here, we knew what you're talking about.
Yeah, we lived it.
That's all we knew.
Yes.
That's all there is.
Yes.
We've just learned a new behavior in this existence. And the beauty of that is, and I always say this, the beauty of us not remembering is that we get to rediscover it. What a beautiful gift that is.
Yes. And the moment when you rediscover and go, it's like such a relief.
Total relief, because you realize that you are not alone and how loved you really are.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful gift. And that's my wish for the world is to create, like you said, to create that understanding and help people rediscover that, what they have and who they are. We're beautiful, beautiful beings, all connected to this beautiful source creator that came here to create.
Absolutely.
And connect. So it just moves me to, so powerful and so beautiful, such a bright light. So Katie, what is the best way for people to engage with you? You have such beautiful resources and tools to teach people. And what is the best way for people to connect with you to tap into that?
So my website is Arizona Spiritual Events with an S. That's a good, easy way. And then my Instagram right now is Spiritually Strong. And I think those are probably the two best ways to get in contact with me right now.
Okay.
You can leave me an email, or a message, and I'll get back to you.
Perfect. I'll include all of that in the notes too, so people can have access to it.
Thank you.
Of course.
And then the course is on a different platform, and maybe we could just drop that in there.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah.
Okay,
If
cool.
you send me the links that you want people to connect to that we've talked about here today, I'll drop them into the description. So just look below and you'll see all the links that we've talked about, ways to engage with these courses. Katie's a beautiful teacher, having experienced her classes and just the experience that you get there and the connections you make. She's built such a beautiful community of people. It's really powerful. And if you're here locally in Arizona, people come from all over the world, but I'm lucky because she lives down the street. So I'm grateful for that. So I highly encourage you to investigate and engage because it's really beautiful work.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being here. I'm grateful that you're here. Grateful that I know you. I'm grateful that I've gotten to experience so many of your gifts.
I feel the same way. Oh.
Thank you all for being here today with us. I hope that you enjoyed the message and the beauty that is available to you. We all have it. If you want to learn more, you can, of course, tap into my website, which is tammytuesday.com for more resources and more information. We love it when you follow us or subscribe on our YouTube channel or any of the podcast channels as well. We love your comments, your feedback. It helps people get this very important message. And if you also found something that you think somebody should see or hear, please share it and pass it on. I'm always sending all of you with lots of love and light. And just remember that life, love, and purpose, it all begins with you. Peace out.